Welcome, Darren Prince, to the Doing CX Right show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know who you are since high school days and then some, but tell my audience, who are you? What do you do professionally?
So professionally, I'm the CEO of the Prince Marketing Group. We're a global sports and entertainment representation and marketing agency with clients from Magic Johnson, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Dennis Rodman, Charlie Sheen, Denise Richards, Carmen Electra. We have so many iconic figures: Vince Neil, Jerry West, Larry Bird. We've worked with the late Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Evel Knievel, Burt Reynolds. Been very, very fortunate to work with some of the most iconic figures in the world for marketing deals consisting of endorsements, licensing, commercials, books, speaking engagements, and other corporate events.
So you have been an entrepreneur since I feel like you've been born. I've known you when we were young, and tell the audience where you started. And customer experience then wasn't even a term, but yet you were doing it. What does that mean to you?
So I started my baseball card mail order business in my teens. And back then there was no internet. Everything was worked off the telephone and a fax machine. And my father, my late father, was such a mentor, not only personally, but professionally. He's always taught me about customer service and, just making sure it's about relationship building. And it wasn't just about the business. He taught me either. It was about, getting to them personally, find out about their families, their hobbies, their special interests, become friends with them. Because when you make the customer experience more enjoyable and there's competition in the other companies that might have the same cards or the same merchandise that you might have, they're going to go to Darren Prince. And, I grew up with that mindset.
Yes. So now that you are no longer that young guy with the baseball cards, but now that you have a big agency and working with the best, what does customer experience mean in this day and age for you?
So when I started Prince Marketing Group over 25 years ago, Magic Johnson was my first client, and he always taught me about over-delivering. That if you over-deliver, you will get the retention that you're looking for and the residual income, the passive income, and just continue with that relationship building. If the contract says 10, you give them 15. If the contract says, 2 hours, make sure you give them a little bit more time. And that was so important to have him as my mentor. And he still is, with these little nuggets, I call them, that I did it with every single client. I did it with brands that we represent, that we hire celebrities for. There's brands now that we consult with. I just think customer service and personal relationship in any sort of business, no matter what industry it is, it's key. Because really in today's world, not many people over-deliver. They do what they're supposed to do. And, you think you're building a business, but to me, that's a transactional business. We want to create a legacy with Prince Marketing Group, or, when I'm long gone and the clients, God forbid, are no longer here, we're always finding, different ways to create, reinvent, retain new customers. And so much of it becomes word of mouth at that point. If you're an over-deliverer, if you go over and above what you're supposed to do, the business will just start coming to you rather than you having to find it.
Let's go into your book, Aiming High. There is a lot to learn from that book from two senses. One is aiming high for revenue and growth and seeking the stars and that North Star, and you can get there wholeheartedly. You have. And then there's the other side of aiming high, and that is around mental health and employee experiences. And so let's take each side for a moment. Now, let's start with mental health because it's so relevant today, where I just saw Nike is giving their employees a week off for mental health. especially as a lot of offices are opening up in September. What's your view on what Nike is doing?
I think it's great. I think all businesses and large corporations need to do it. It's essential, especially during the pandemic. You know, we were talking earlier. It doesn't matter if you're the highest level of executive or somebody that works at a lower level position in that company, and you're just starting out, even as an intern. You know, mental health is everything because so many of us aren't willing to talk about it. You know, there's shame if it's us that's struggling as individuals. There's some shame and embarrassment and uncomfortability if it's a family member that you have to go back home to and deal with when you're not at work. And I think if you have that ability to rejuvenate on a break like Nike's given the employees, take care of your mindset, as well as when you're back, you've got the right individuals to speak to. Your company is just going to be firing on all cylinders because now everybody's, feeling good about themselves mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And that's everything. There's so much fear of the unknown and uncertainty right now. And, me personally, my struggle for 24 years was I was an opiate addict. And by the grace of God, I celebrated 13 years sober in July. And I speak all over the world about addiction recovery. But so much of my speech now has been implementing mental health because, when those pressures are put on you, people want an escape. They need something to get that break and to just step away from reality. And if you've got the right CEO, boss, executives, or, like I said, entry-level employees that understand this, that we all have to work together as one, it's essential. It's everything.
Do you see a movement happening where people are having the uncomfortable conversations more? Or do you think that we have a long way to go?
It's kind of it's an interesting question. I see it in certain sectors that there's a lot more people open and willing to talk about it. But I also think in other arenas, other industries, that they have a long way to go. But it's also why I advocate for so much of this, because I need people to hear a story of the guy that everybody thought had it all. I was at the height of my, industry, and yet I was so broken inside and felt so undeserving, and also needed that checkout. I needed it every night to the point where it almost killed me. And if I can just get my message out there, it's part of, addiction is still a part of mental health, because there's an underlying issue that caused me to need to numb out my feelings and not speak up. So it's kind of how I segue into it. It's really just about having the comfortability with your own skin to take an action and speak to somebody and say, hey, I don't feel right. I thought I landed that big account and, we lost it and I'm dejected. I want to go out and get hammered tonight and drunk, or it's just not the way to do it. And then the hindsight is we just closed a multi-million-dollar account. Let's all go out and party. And before you know it, the party's having you. And one day turns into 2 days and 3 days, and weekend warriors become everyday drinkers. And especially for the young hotshots in the entrepreneurial world, the business world, in their, early to mid 20s, you have to understand there's a difference between going out and enjoying yourself and then making it, okay, let's go to work, let's crush it, and then go out and blow off steam, because no one's going to beat it. It's going to get to a point where, it's going to become a priority. And if executives and CEOs don't start addressing it, that's going to affect your bottom line in business. It's going to affect your customer service. It's going to affect the overall brand and corporation. So let's start talking about it now. Nobody should feel isolated because they have these thoughts or depression, or they're overwhelmed, or they're overstressed, or they're crippled with anxiety, and they only know one way to blow off steam, or to isolate. You don't even need to be abusing substances. What happens to those that just become so introverted and they just lock themselves into their apartment or their house for a weekend because it's the only way they know to kind of get rejuvenated? No. You got to speak up. You have to have the comfortability to say, something's wrong and I need help. And again, all that does is, especially in the professional world, helps everybody, helps the entire company, the whole corporation, small business operate so much better.
I think one of the challenges is that mental health is not something you see. So physical challenges, it's easy to show empathy, and it's easy to express it because it's in front of you. But mental health is the opposite. And as leaders, as I am in a big company, regardless of what size, leaders have the opportunity to get to know their people. And the smart ones will identify that there's a calling for help and treat them in the way that they need to be treated. Agree?
100%. It doesn't matter if you could be CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You should get to know as many, if not all, of your employees, every single one of them, because that also makes it more comfortable for somebody that's struggling. And if they're able to have that comfortability to come speak to you or anybody within that organization, just helps the business. It helps the spirit of everybody else that's around, because, if you have somebody suffering with mental health, small or big business, whether it's 5 employees or 5,000, and it just kind of gets around, the energy around that person or those individuals could be multiple people. It starts affecting, it's almost like it just sends a torpedo for the whole company. So why not talk about it? And, being a service anyway, when you're a leader and an executive and you're able to do good, feel good, and help somebody else, to me, that's more important than money anyway.
What's your goal from aiming high? And what are some tips, tactics that you think are important for business leaders and managers and everyone at all levels to know?
I was with my girlfriend in Chicago, Neglect, this past week, and we're watching one of Magic's keynotes. And I think this was from PricewaterhouseCoopers at the Jacob Javits Center for about 8,000 people that we booked maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And, he talks about complacency never set in. That complacency when he won his first Lakers championship never set in. He goes, I want that champagne poured on my head every year. I want to win the last game of the season every year, which is why he won 5 NBA titles. He goes, and it's the same thing in business. He goes, I tell my team, and it's the truth. You close that big deal, you got 5 minutes to celebrate, go grab lunch, go grab a nice dinner, and let's get back at it tomorrow. I think that's so key, because, it gets to a point where, the success and the money, everything else is great, but we all want to evolve. We all want to accomplish more, attain more success, and bring others with us along the way. So it's not just what we do for ourselves to benefit us. As you have that growth and that success, there's so many other individuals that you can bring into that corporation and that business, small or large, that now have the opportunity for employment, and they can do the exact same thing and, elevate themselves and learn and, find out who they are, dealing with all the ups and downs that all of us do, the adversities, the challenges, the obstacles, that incredible feeling when you land that big account, and how you deal with the adversity when you lose one that you thought you had. I think it's great from all aspects. I know when I close a big deal, I don't really learn much about myself anymore in life, just like when I'm going through great times, and life is great. But I think, the adversity in business is, just as important. Celebrate the wins and, understand what might have went wrong on the losses and what you need to do differently next time to make sure it doesn't happen again.
What was the pivotal moment for you that made you change your habits and your lifestyle?
July 1st of 2008, my late uncle, Stu, who just passed away a couple of weeks ago, and his then girlfriend, Andrea, were visiting New Jersey. to see my mom, and they paid a surprise visit to my old condo, and he knew I wasn't it was in good shape, and that I was living this highly functioning life as an opiate addict. And this woman, Andrea, she never met me before and just asked me if I was okay. And for whatever reason, I had that connection to open up. We talk about mental health, the willingness, the courage to speak up to somebody else. And I told her everything. And she said, do you realize you're an addict? Your life's unmanageable. And I said, yeah, I do. And she's like, do you realize you're powerless and you have a disease? I said, I do. And she's like, most importantly, this is the most important question. Do you realize that it doesn't matter if you're from Yale or jail or Park Avenue or Park Bench, that the disease of addiction does not discriminate? And that broke my soul. I started to cry because all this stuff, it doesn't mean anything if you don't mean anything. And about 24 hours later, I was on that detox plan, and I called them up. I said, I can't do it anymore. I'm going to call the doctor to get what I really want to get. And ran into the bathroom and locked myself in there as my then wife was banging on the door, stuffed with crying, baby, don't do it, don't do it. She already saw 2 overdoses. And out came a couple extra strength Vicodins out of the medicine cabinet, which was so ironic because we knew we cleaned out all the opiates. I was looking for an anxiety pill to help with the cravings, and it seemed like just what I needed. But you talk about white moments in life, Stacey. I had one right then because I fell on my knees. I was shaking, trembling, and crying, and I called out to God, and I said, take the money, the notoriety, the business. I can't do this anymore. I can't live this double life. I need your help. And, he heard me because on my right shoulder, I had this burning sensation in my right ear. I'm deaf in my left. I heard a voice say, I've got you and you're ready. And I flushed the pills and wound up on a computer 5 minutes later in a taxi cab on a beautiful summer night of July 2nd, 2008, heading to a church with about 150 to 200 recovered addicts and alcoholics who are once of a hopeless state of mind at a 12-step meeting. And that's when life began. I walked in, I heard the leader say, is anybody new coming back or struggling? And this hand went right up. And I realized then that I was given the gift of desperation. And, one day became a week, became a month, became a year. And slowly but surely, I started putting the pieces of the puzzle back together and filling that hole in my soul, that insecure, broken spirit that needed everybody to think that I arrived because of my own inadequacies in grade school, grammar school, high school. It was being labeled as the learning disabled one, which is why it's so important we all speak up, because we take stuff with us from our childhood and it goes somewhere. That's why I'm so passionate to speak to high school kids. And when I was on Jay Shetty a few months ago, his amazing podcast, he's like, your story is just so different because everybody's got the smoke and mirrors, but you arrived and you wanted the people below you to think that you arrived, but you already were living the reality at the height of the industry. I was like, this is why you have to speak up, man. It was always like I was trying to prove to the teachers and friends and the people that would never come anywhere close to my success. Like, look at me now. And that all comes from not speaking up. That's all part of mental health, but I don't regret any of it. Life worked out perfect. I celebrated 13 years in July 2nd, and it's the greatest achievement of my life. And I do it every day. And the amount of people around the world I get to help, I wouldn't change a single thing. God's plan worked out absolutely perfect for me. And I'm able to help high school kids and adults and business leaders and corporations that, it's okay to not feel okay. Just get out of your own head and be a voice and speak up and be comfortable to know that you're not alone.
I want to highlight something you said because there was a lot of meat there, a lot of good information, but something that stands out to me. That the pivotal moment happened because somebody asked you if you are okay. And that is magical because that's something we all could do every day at work, at home, with friends, our colleagues, our boss. Are you okay today? And then people open up, maybe, and maybe not, maybe when they're ready. But your story makes that so clear that leadership is that's what it's about. Someone saying, "Are you okay?" That's how it starts.
It's an amazing question. Even the way you said it, I got chills because it doesn't happen often enough. It just doesn't. And my staff and my team of agents and assistants, I mean, they know I'm the first one they can speak to. I'll notice it too when they're off, and I'll say something, whatever I have to do to try to help them through it, because I know people were there for me. And, I have to pay it forward to keep what I have. My self-worth never came from the super agent life, as people call it. My self-worth came from being a service to other people. My self-esteem finally started getting developed 13 years ago by doing esteemable acts. And I don't think high-level executives even understand that, or basic, everyday employees, 9 to 5, no matter what your position is. First off, be grateful that you've got a job right now in today's world. Be grateful you have any sort of career, and just know that you will evolve and you will grow. But no matter who it is, to just say those words, "Are you okay?" If it happened more, this country would be in a lot better place. You will have people say, "No, I'm not." It's huge, It's like I said, being of service, that's part of it right there. Those words are incredible.
Well, that's why I also believe that customer experience, employee experience, is about getting the basics right. Yes, there's sophisticated ways to measure customer experience, and there's technology and so on. But just we're talking about, "Are you okay?" goes miles, and not enough. That doesn't happen enough. So I love your story, and I'm glad that I'm able to pull that out for listeners, because that's in our control every day.
Absolutely. I love that, though. Can you imagine, instead of having small talk with customer and customer relationship building, "Hey, how you doing today?" which is always the norm. But when you say it in a way like we just discussed, it's going to give some people the ability to say, "You know what? Today's a tough one. I'm glad you asked."
Yeah.
It's huge. It just really is. Like I said, think about most of your calls or your emails. "How you doing today? Hope all is well." One of those things doesn't make somebody feel comfortable to come out and tell you the truth and what they're really going through. But the other words, you have not only a friend, but a customer for life. We're able to take the focus off business for a little bit, talk about life.
Love that. So this is a question I ask everyone on my show. If I had CEOs and leaders and even the people you work with in the celebrity world, if you could give them one tip, one thing they take away, what would that be?
In my industry, and most of them have it, but I always tell them, gratitude. At the end of the day, most of us, like I said, if you have a career, if you have employment, we all have 2 words: luxury problems. If you woke up breathing, if you're not in a hospital, we have life's challenges or luxury problems. That's what they are. Because you lost a major account in the business world, it's not the end of the world. There'll be another one coming. Because you got a huge account, don't get so excited, because you might lose that account or something else might go sideways. Stay in the day, stay in the moment, take it for what it is, and keep hustling. And like I said earlier, like Magic said, don't be complacent. I think this behavioral pattern, Stacey, is what creates mental health issues. Between that and not speaking up, always challenge yourself, always push yourself. And just know every day is not going to be a good day, and embrace the bad ones. Own them, because that's when you grow.
I also believe you need to be in the right room. So if you're working for people who don't support who you are, the help you need to be your best self and show up as your best self, you have to look at that. As well as speaking up, you've got to choose where you spend your time and your energy.
people, places, and things. That's the recovery world. It's the same thing in business. I do so many interviews and people ask me, how do I stay successful and keep evolving? I make sure I'm far from the smartest person in any room. I put my ego aside. Some of my friends are some of the most revered names, in the world, even putting the celebrity aside, Scooter Braun's a good friend of mine, Jay Shetty, Lewis Howes, and the biggest podcast guy. Scooter's taken over the world right now. They have such admiration for me and my personal professional journey. But now I'll look at somebody that's 38, 35, 40 years old that built $1 billion empire all day long, because I'm never too smart and I want to learn what they're doing and I want to learn about their world and see if there's anything that I can take, just like a great athlete will take a piece of legends that they looked up to and create their own game, just like a business leader might have inspiration from other business leaders that they grew up watching. Musicians, the same thing. If you're the smartest person in the room, find another room.
Again, get the basics right. Well, I'm going to ask you my last question, and this is more of a personal one. If you could go back to your younger self, 20-year-old Darren, based on what you know now, what would you tell you then?
We got to go back to speak up, to have the courage to speak to others and tell them what's going on inside. Again, I don't regret anything, but I know life would have worked out a lot different had I did have the courage to say, I got lost. I lost the sense of self because I had that brokenness of, I don't want to call it trauma, but again, everybody's got something. And, growing up in that environment of feeling like special ed and learning disabled, when that success came and that money came and the life came and the cars and the houses and the woman and the everything in my industry, I lost the sense of self. And I'm lucky to be alive here speaking to you today, because I know by all rights I shouldn't be. And if we can help just a couple people, even one, to have the courage to speak up, that's in the entrepreneurial and the business world, then it's been a great blessing. And then if we can give some of our business nuggets to other people as well, too, on what to do to, grow your brand and your business and retain that customer base and grow from it, that's the other goal. So then we did our job today, right?
Yes. Well, I do believe when you love what you do and enjoy what you do authentically, the money comes and the fame, whatever that means for you, comes.
The recognition. Yeah, exactly. But go figure. I thought all the accolades and the recognition came from me from the age in life, and 100 to 1 more came about coming out with my story of living with imposter syndrome for 24 years. I get more respect and more accolades. Jeannie Buss and I, the Lakers owner, she's a dear friend, Mark Cuban, all these people. And I'm like, they wouldn't care if I did $100 million business deal tomorrow. This is what matters to them the most, because they lived it. They've got family members. They've got friends. They've got loved ones that suffer from depression, anxiety, substance abuse, alcoholism. And, I'm very blessed. I really am. If I lost the business tomorrow, I found the sense of self. And most people don't understand that feeling, that I found myself in here and here and in here. And it's a beautiful thing to get there. And hopefully, some of your listeners can do the same, because that's everything. That's it right there. Everything else will come when you get to that place. Like you said, the success, the finances, worry about being happy, loving what you do for a career, and the rest will fall into place. Time takes time. You just got to be patient.
So, Darren, where can people find you? Because I know when they listen to this, they're going to want to find you. And I'll put the social links in the notes, but certainly your book is on Amazon. So
official Darren Prince is my personal website, DarrenPrince.com. Instagram @agent_DP, Facebook It's Darren Prince, Marina Del Rey, and Prince Marketing Group is the business site for all you business people. I know you have a huge audience there, PRINCE marketinggroup.com. And then lastly, which is very near and dear to me, if anybody wants to contribute to my 501c3, aiminghighfoundation.org, 100% of the proceeds has been scholarshiping individuals struggling with mental health and substance abuse for about 2 years now since we started. And we've scholarshiped at least a dozen just in the past year through the pandemic, which is the greatest thing in the world, to give people the opportunity to get mentally, physically, emotionally right and get back into the workforce and feel their best and live their best life.
You're doing amazing work, Darren. I'm honored to be with you today and know you for what I feel is a lifetime and watch your journey. And I'm glad to be on it.
Thank you for having me, Stace. Same here. Likewise. Congrats on all the success.
Take care.